So in today's video, we'll be shooting a two-part series on how to work with, how to handle and socialise with large goannas. And here we are joined with our friend, Dragon Training Mammal Zoo, aka Rory. Welcome. Or unwelcome. Either or. Both will work.
I'm going to ask a few questions regarding monitor training. So, to start off, what is your favourite Varanus?
Place ones.
Place monitor?
Yeah.
Have to be the Prenti.
Prenti?
Yep.
Sweet. So, to bounce off that one, so what was your first monitor?
Be a ridgetail monitor, also known as an Aki or a Ridgie, multiple names, whatever the scientific name is.
Varanus acanthurus.
That's it. Yeah, that was my first one.
And spotted tree monitor.
Spotted tree monitor. Still being first monitor, right?
Unusual monitor.
Very, very weird. It was on class 1 when I got it. I think class 2.
Yeah. What made you keep the species you currently own? So we'll start with Rory.
I like them.
You like them?
I like them. It's,
Well, you've got too much to go over, really.
Yeah,
yeah.
The amount of goannas you have here.
yeah,
It's...
I want to get the whole collection of all the monitors. Eventually, we will open a large
Zoo.
zoo with the world's monitor collection.
All the world's largest monitor collection.
Just the world's monitor collection.
Yeah, but it'll probably be the largest as well.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think there'll be another zoo out there with 20, 30 plus types of goanna
And 30 laces in
and
the
30 laces in one big pit, so
Yeah.
an interactive pit as well.
Interactive pit.
Yes.
wild moose wandering about that they can hunt.
So Cam, what attracted you to them?
Well, it was the episode of The Croc Hunter with the Prenti in it. Oh, however many years ago that was, yeah, back in the early 2000s. Watching that as a kid, where Steve was playing with the big Parenti in the wild, and I was like, cool, I want one of them one day. Fast forward 15 odd years, I've now got a Parenti. The Spencers are just cool to have as well, and eventually work my way down the track to having maybe 15, just 15 big goannas, only 15. Like
15
my
different
partner will
species.
say otherwise, but 15, 15 big goannas, and then we cut it off at that. So next question.
When taming, in quotation marks, large Varanids, where would you start?
Start with you on this one.
Well, I would start giving it 4 to 6 months of just not touching it, just leaving it in the enclosure, feeding it, watering it, cleaning the enclosure as the most contact that you have, and walking past the enclosure or being in the enclosure, but giving it a space if it's a larger setup, and just letting them get used to your presence without actually being touched and having that fear response, so they get used to your presence as a non-fearful thing.
Yep.
Well, that's pretty much the same. You leave them alone for a few months, let them get used to the new environment, puts less stress on them. The only interaction you have is feeding. You can try handling, like what I done with a few of my guys when they were smaller. I would try to handle them once a week. If they were still too flighty, I would leave it. Continue on to the next week. Still too flighty, you leave it. You got to be very patient with these guys, because you can't stress them out like most animals are real easy. They can go off food as well. Not very common, but they will. And then you just don't want them, when they are bigger, having that whole, you go near them, they think that you're just going to grab them, they're going to freak out over it, stress them out, can cut you open, can bite you, whip you, do whatever. But yeah, you just leave them alone for a few months, and like what you have seen with my Spencers, I got him at a year old, he had no handling, and then I just started doing it once a week, trying to handle him, then went to hand feeding him, and then that slowly built up that trust. Now I can just get him out of the tank. He'll huff and puff, but that's
All of
about
them
it.
do it, though.
All of them do, exactly.
Yep.
So leave them alone for a few months, let them get used to your presence. Or what I did as well, which people will find weird, I done the sweaty shirt trick. I've done it with my Lacey, I've done it with my Spencers, Breadlies, Olives, you name it. It's where you get a shirt, like a cheap shirt, wear it for a week, work out in it, whatnot, get it smelling of you, chuck that in the enclosure. They put your scent with safety, because it's in their enclosure, it's in their home, and then that it helps you, I found, in the long run, just getting them out of the enclosure. Like I said, like Bitey Olives I've had, Bitey bloody Lacey's, and the Bitey Breadlie. I had a shirt in there. My Lacey I had, she was a nut job, and she used to drag it around the enclosure with her and sleep in it. So it went from pretty much trying to bite me, trying to rip my face off, to sleeping in a shirt that I put in there for her. And it does sound weird, but hell, it works. And it worked with one of the blokes from the Expos. He's Lacey too. So try that. Just leave it in there, see how it goes.
There was an old, probably about 6-7 years ago, video from Jay at Prehistoric Pets where he put the socks in.
Yeah. So it
does work.
I don't know. An old bloke told me it years ago, and I thought, oh, it's a load of shit. I tried it myself, and I'm like, it makes sense because they incorporate your scent or your smell with safety, and
I guess
they have your smell on them all the time. So they're less inclined to attack or rip you open.
I guess there's a lot of things like monitors and snakes. They really do heavily rely on scent as well. So I can see where that would work.
Like, it is a bit of a weird one that I've done, and like I said, some weird bloke told me, it's like that Mr. Miyagi, like the wax on, wax off. It's not going to work, but it works. It's the same as this old bloke told me years ago. Just put a shirt in there that smells at you, like, yeah, alright mate, whatever, and then I chucked the shirt in there. And 2 months after, I could handle this nut job of a lace monitor, and they come in as a rescue. So, and she was sleeping in it. She'd pull it around the enclosure. I would have it in the corner, and she'd pull it around and be in the hot spot, have it under stuff, and be sleeping in that singlet I put in the enclosure for her. So, you can try that. It's worked for me, and it's worked for people I've told to do that as well. Like I said, it is weird, but hell, it works.
Yep.
So, alright, next question.
So, what are some tips you would give to the average keeper?
On handling or?
So just on handling large monitors, but even just reptiles in general, like.
Yeah, as you said earlier, scent is very important.
We'll incorporate it as much as you can with that. Minimise the interactions if it's a brand new monitor. So pretty much what we covered in the last question is just try to minimise your interactions so you don't stress it out. Once it, not so much once you feel good with it, but once the monitor feels calm with you, then you can kind of move on to that next step where I went from basic interactions to feeding it just in a bowl with me in the presence of it, because a lot of monitors are shy eaters, especially the smaller ones, where if you can witness them eating in front of you, that's the next step. So as long as you get up to that stage, then you should be reinforcing more of the hands-on approach. So you know they're eating in front of you, you know they're not as shy, that's when you can kind of reinforce the, alright, let's try handling them a bit more. But then you've also got to watch how you handle them, because again, you don't want to stress them out.
Yeah, like eating's the most important thing once they're solidly.
And probably the research on them as well. Like,
Research.
definitely be researching everything to do with them and the enclosure.
A big thing I think I'd like to push is, if you're scared of an animal, you
don't
shouldn't
get
keep
it.
it.
No, the amount of people.
Like, there's a difference between respecting an animal, like this Lacey will mess me up. Like it will charge at you in a food response,
if you're generally scared of it.
But yeah, if you're freaked out to the point where you can't even get into the same enclosure with it, you should not keep that animal.
That's for all animals. It's not like we see it all the time where the pythons all go at us.
It's a pretty new concept as well, because lace monitors, like, I love getting in with them, I love interacting with them.
Yeah.
And everyone that wants to get one these days wants to interact with them.
Yeah.
Because, and realistically, that's the best way to have a lace monitor. You want to be able to interact with it. But like years ago, I volunteered at a zoo that they didn't even.
Oh, they wouldn't let you near it.
Well, they said that they wouldn't even get in with their laces.
Jesus.
And but that's because back then there were a fair few people that were
Well,
doing
it was
work
like
with them, but
it was like a taboo thing as well. Like you
Yeah.
talk to any old keeper, and they'll be like, "Oh, you're nuts for
Yeah.
handling a big goanna,
So-
or you should be handling it like that, not like you get in with them, or they
Yeah.
tongue feed it, or they just
Yes.
chuck food in the enclosure and that's it."
it's like tigers as well.
Yeah.
Like tigers used to. Well, a lot of the old thinking is you don't get in with it. It's there.
That was big cats across the
Animals
board.
of
Yeah.
consequence.
But
Exactly.
it's better.
If
Yeah.
there's a danger of a certain larger
better
type
to
of
know
Not
Right.
even larger. You can deal with an elapid this big.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Like there's still an element of
Elapids
danger in there.
was
Like
a taboo keeping back in the day
Yeah.
as well, just like goannas. It was goannas and elapids. Everything else was fine, but as soon as you had this big lace monitor or a red belly, it's just like, oh, this guy's nuts.
Saying that, I'd be happily suffer the consequences of a bite from a large lace monitor. Well, it would be painful, but I'd be more happy to do that than I would suffer a bite from an elapid. It's like,
Oh,
I think anyone would any day of the week.
actually, it depends what elapid.
True. Depends on the elapid as well. But, alright, next question.
This question is going to be aimed more at Rory. So, would there be a difference in techniques of socializing different species of monitor?
Yes. So, start off with Ackies.
Yep.
Ackies, you can do what you do with other monitors, where you kind of stick your hand in, or you put clothing in, or you do all that stuff.
Yep.
And you can wait, and you can be patient, or you can just pick them up by the base of the tail, hold them to the base of the tail, because they use that tail to wedge into rocks.
Yep.
So holding onto the base of the tail makes them feel comfortable and secure, and not holding onto the body makes them feel comfortable as well, because they're not restricted, so they can move. And initially they will try to scratch and climb, but if you don't have clothing on, like you've got clothing on obviously, but you don't have
You have long sleeves.
you don't have long sleeves on, they'll scratch your skin a little bit, but they can't get traction, so they'll eventually just sit and relax and calm down, and it's a very easy way to do it. Spencers are an animal that
I
are probably
find they're similar as well, because
Yeah.
I'm never properly holding my guy. He always just does what he wants, and I kind of like hold on a little bit, and I find that freaks me out a little bit more. But I'll hold him up till he tripods, and then he'll just be sitting there.
because they hold on by themselves.
That's where the ridges you have to hold on to, but the
Yeah.
Spencers you can kind of just.
Yeah.
I let him do his own thing. Like he'll climb up me, or I'll like go down like that, and he'll tripod around me. If he feels movement, he holds on.
Yeah.
So if you're moving around, that's when his tail goes around, or he'll hold on to you a bit better, as opposed to the Yakkies, you've actually got to hold on to them yourself. And then
And they're more of a shy species, so
exactly.
so they're not as inquisitive as something like a Lacey, which Lacey's will they're incredibly inquisitive, so and they're incredibly bold. And they'll chase you out of the enclosure. They'll hold their ground, and they'll feel comfortable within themselves enough so that you can actually sit there in the enclosure, and the training is actually them coming up and getting used to you, licking you, smelling you, walking about you without you actually
Again with like the scent, getting used to your scent
without you
in their
touching
area.
them, straining them, doing all that stuff, and then you got Frenties, which are a mix.
Frenchies are just weird,
Like they're inquisitive, and they've got that boldness of a large
but at
monitor.
the same time they can be shy and bold.
Yeah.
Or it depends on the day. Like I've had my girl bolt on me, I've had her come running at me, I pick her up and just have it chilling on my arm. We
Yeah.
both have them on our backs and that, so
And like
they're a mix of all.
I did generally the same thing with the Lacey's that I did with the Frenties, just hatchies, just kind of stick your hand in the enclosure and let it come up.
And let them come up
The
to you.
Lacey's are a lot quicker to take to it, because
Oh,
they
yes.
they want to
I
interact,
want
they want to come
to
out
see
there.
what it is.
Yeah. I personally find Lacey's the best for socialising, because they are that inquisitive. And over in America, I imagine they find an outlet the croc monitors.
Talking to big monitors,
Yeah.
it's
The
big
Fren-
guy.
the
And I
Frenties
guess
are-
Asian water monitors too, because they're just so inquisitive.
Yeah. And
I guess it would make it easier with those big, like, you got the big types that are shy, then you got the bigger medium types that are just bold. But then you got Lacey's, and as sometimes they can be hard to work with, but then they're the most user-friendly one because they pick up on everything
Yeah,
like
like,
that. So
they'll get to a point where they'll be incredible, but they do have higher risks because, like any monitor shouldn't bite,
You
like
got risk,
you can get bit by an ackie and they've still got.
I think the worst
teeth,
bite on
it's
the
like-
market would probably be from a Lacey though.
I think
Crop
with-
monitor.
No, Australian.
Australian. Yep.
Parentes can do a pretty
Parenti would
nasty
rip
job
you
too.
Yeah, but I've seen worse Lacey bites.
And it's all the it's the slice.
Yeah.
It's a bite in itself is not so bad because
Just a side nip.
Yeah,
I've been done by both, and
yeah,
you look at the size of the little lace monitor bite, and she was half the size of the Frenchie, and that was still
Yeah.
a nasty bite. That was to the bone too.
and I've
A
only
little
ever,
lacy.
I've only ever been bitten. Not,
Yeah, it wasn't
not
a slice.
So I've only ever had tiny little teeth marks.
Yeah.
Even from 1.2 meter Parenti.
Yeah.
Whereas a side swipe just from the thought of it, so you've always got to watch and be
So
on
if you
point.
want to get bitten front on,
Yeah,
not on
and
the
then
side.
it goes back to
It's-
be like not
having
being
to bite
scared of that
the wrong-
happening.
that's
If you
it,
want to
yeah.
socialise the animals down, not to be scared.
Yeah,
just
and,
don't
and,
get them if you're
and,
afraid of
Yeah.
them.
and watch, like, spend time just sitting there watching them, knowing what their reactions are to things, knowing how they're going to react to things, knowing what their triggers are. But that's probably another question. Is it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
What are some techniques that you have found to continually work across the board with Varana species?
Ah, that's right. It was chin. Yeah, chin rubs. Chin rubs for yours.
Yeah.
And back rubs for mine.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, you can start that one off then with the
Yeah,
chin rub
yeah.
technique because people will probably be like, what the hell's that got to do with it?
Yeah, got a concentration break, which is the so after you get to the point where they're all happy with you and they're
Tame down a
relaxed
bit,
and,
trust you and all
yeah,
that. Yeah.
acclimatise to your presence and whatnot, and you can actually touch them. You want to develop a concentration break with them so that you can break their concentration, like when they're licking or they're freaked out by something or they're thinking there's food or something like that, or just to get their attention, know that you're there. And giving them a good a chin rub seems to really relax them for us, and that's what we use as a concentration break. Most of it, we don't necessarily use it for the ackies, but
Just for the larger
Yeah,
Varanus types.
yeah, more for them that need it. So if we've got the frenzy to show and it's a little bit antsy about the situation around, or we've
Or if there's
doing-
too many people in that.
yeah, or we're doing a hold with it, we'll give it a chin scratch. Or if like I'm giving it a feed, I'll go and give it a chin scratch as well after the feed, just to kind of say that the feed is over. But again, that's something you get to at a very late stage.
Yeah, to the end of the track once you've already got everything else sorted
Yeah.
with them. But that works. Like what I do with mine, the cupping in the back of the head, where you work your way, place your hand on the back, work your way up the back of the neck, just so there's no chance. That's early days as well, so there's no chance of it spinning around and biting you up.
Yeah.
Then you just cup the head, just so, especially for the Prenti, so she thinks she's safe in a hide box. She's already used to my smell in the enclosure and her own, and it just calms her down when she's having that freak out, either when she's being handled. Not so much eating I do that with, but more so when she's being handled, like if we've got her at a show or an expo or something, and she's being held by people and starts to freak out a bit, you just cup her head. Then you just rub the side of the neck a little bit, and then you can rub the back of the neck as well, or on the back as well. I find works with her. I don't go down the spine too much, because she doesn't like it, or when her back legs are touched or any of that. But cupping the head works. Not so much on the Spencers, because the hell was that?
Don't like
Alright.
bugs.
You and your bugs, yeah. It doesn't really work on the Spencers that much, but because he does what he wants to do. But more so, like, yeah, the larger ones like the Parenti, it's more just a head cup and a head rub, and then that usually relaxes her.
And
Even with handling too, I usually just rub the back of her head so she knows, like, I'm about to pick her up
and even
pull
with
her out
maybe
and
even
close up.
feeding as well. So like cues for them to feed.
Feeding more, well, it's more so like feeding wise, I do like the tongue or the tapping of the tongs or the clickers for the Spencers. So whenever you start clicking, his tongue just starts going mental. It's like, oh, okay, it's food time. Where is it? Where is it? He'll be looking around the enclosure, constantly sensing. But with the Parenti, it's more because I either hand feed her or I, which we don't condone hand feeding, but we hand feed our monitors a lot. I usually have a bowl of chicken. And then I'll be tapping the bottom of that bowl, because it's like a metal dog bowl. So I'll be tapping the bottom of that, and she knows, like, oh, okay, so it's the same principle as the clickers, except I'm just tapping the bottom of the bowl, and then I'll just be like, yeah, and then just kind of shaking a bit, and then she'll take the chicken.
And that kind of, you can do similar things with all species of,
oh yeah, you can do it
of
all.
monitor.
You just got to come up with either like what works, or you develop your own tips and tricks along the way where people use clickers or tappers, or there are some people that make like a sound like themselves. Where
same ones where they do it with Crocs.
Yeah, the Crocs as well.
They work really well too.
Yeah,
it works really well with
Gators
Crocs.
too. You ever watch any gator training videos?
I haven't actually tried any clicker training. Yeah,
clickers. It
works.
It works very well with like your larger reptiles, so crocodiles, monitors.
And the thing is, crocodiles and monitors are very smart.
Exactly.
They're a lot smarter than what people.
The more
give them
intelligent
credit for.
animals, you use clicking sounds and it works for them, and it breaks. It is almost like a concentration break as well. Like there's no food there because my Spencer's, whenever you start clicking, or if it be a mouth click, or a tongs or whatnot, he knows food's coming. He won't charge you, he won't jump out of the enclosure, he just waits there, and if you're looking around the tank, go, where is it, and then boom, there's food in front of him, he's like, oh, there it is, it's like it just magically appears for him, but he knows food's coming when you start clicking.
The other thing is it's important to know that even with the clicking, although it can alleviate a lot of, like zoos use it with the, like some zoos will use like a different coloured glove or
True, they do, and different buckets zoos have used as well for certain
Komodos
animals.
or Crocs and stuff. But it's always good to not become complacent with that and think that
it's going to work every
something
time.
may not pique their interest and they may not want to bite on. So
don't just rely on we can do this or that, but we hand feed, so it's always
the one that I
always take the risk with it anyway.
Out of all the goannas that we keep, the one that I'm the most nervous about hand feeding is our adult water mumbler.
He's very
like
quick.
lightning quick.
Very quick.
And the food.
He puts the laces to shame on how fast he is sometimes.
Well, yeah, like the laces can be pretty quick, but they're pretty used to food coming in.
Yeah.
Whereas Mertens, he's got an incredible. And the other thing is the laces, they're food items. I can get it a lot larger, so there's a lot of different.
There's always so much tail on a mouse or a rat.
Yeah, that's the thing is that, and he can jump and he's got that flight. Whereas you handle him and like you handle a. But saying that, like laces have an incredible food response, and if it's a wild lacy, they're a lot, or a new lacy, they're a lot different.
Something blue
yeah,
wasp.
They're a lot different to ones that you've worked with for years and years, and you've gotten used to the animal, and they've gotten used to you, and you know not to be complacent, and you know not to like drop your concentration, because that's when you can
stuff up and get a bit.
Yeah.
As we all know.
Yeah.
From experience. Alright, and that'll do it for today. Thank you, Rory, for having us in his zoo today to shoot this video. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for part 2, which should be probably next week. Who knows? We'll see at this point. Who knows what could happen by then. But thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.
Catch it.